Welcome to Nike Pod Sessions. I'm your host, James Buford. Join us as we talk with Nike creatives about why they did it, what they did, and what inspires them to keep doing it here on Nike Pod Sessions. Today's guest is Scott Hutsenpiller, Senior Designer for PTO Chassis.
I'm Scott Hutsenpiller. I'm in apparel design for PTO. I'm leading the innovation efforts for PTO across sport, and super stoked to be part of this new team and this new offense.
Cool. So earlier we were talking about you starting off as a designer, but not at Nike, working on stuff that's just like at its high level. It's just pure performance and outdoor, super technical. I even found certain patents and things like that that were online about some of the work you had done. But even what I found that was super interesting was that you like to snowboard and you're into outdoors and you do it as on your own time as well. So talk a little bit about that, because normally people typically, I don't play soccer, I don't play basketball, but I've designed for these things. So it's nice to see a designer who's actually doing what they actually designed for.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we all kind of find those points in our career where our passions for recreation or hobby align with the product that we design. But I loved your analogy on the waste can insights and the innovation that you found when you were working with the hospital. And since I came back to Nike in 2012, that kind of passion space for me was kind of in the rearview mirror. One with the brands that I was with while I was away from Nike, but also, for the tour of duty, my first tour of duty, if you will, with Nike when I was leading design for ACG. And so what I found was that, the time that I spent with Nike Golf and special categories, and then the last 3 years with PTL, it's a really exciting approach because, you have this methodology in your head, but it's a new landscape to apply it to. And so that's what was been really exciting. Early days of ACG, when I came on to launch Nike snowboarding under the ACG banner, it was a dream job. I mean, it was like I couldn't get enough snowboarding. I was moving from Manhattan. I left Tommy Hilfiger to take a job as a senior designer with ACG, and moved to the Northwest. And all the buttons were pushed. It was a great company, a great role, and a real alignment with my passions for the outdoor.
Yeah. And so were you from the East Coast, or were you coming home back to the West Coast? Or?
I was flip-flopping coasts for about 10 years before making the move to Nike. So I grew up in Pennsylvania. My pops had moved around for some years, and he landed in California. And so I was living in PA, visiting pops in Cali. And then as undergrad loomed, I ended up starting college back on the East Coast, but then finished college on the West Coast in California, University of California.
Yeah.
But then I knew I needed specialization for apparel design, and so I moved to Manhattan and did an FIT program. So I worked for Polo and Hilfiger after FIT, um, and then made the move to Portland. So in
Yeah.
about a 10-year span there, I was kind of jumping coasts for a bit, you know.
And were you so undergrad? What were you studying?
So I kicked off. I was always the kid that was like, you know, dropping mad illustrations in art class from fifth grade on, and so I knew I had that creative outlet. I mean, I was doing, you know, set design and all that kind of stuff in high school, and so but then I kind of garnered this real passion for fashion, and I started school in fine arts in an illustration program, and but in the same instant I landed a gig at a small boutique in the Pittsburgh area for a menswear boutique, and that I shopped at all the time, and I kind of got to know the staff there. And over a 2-year period, one of the managers at a store, I transferred to work with him. Long story short, he became a great mentor for me. I started doing window display, alteration, started going on buying trips with him to Manhattan. So it really kind of opened that creative door to me to like, hey, this is the industry that would be right for me.
Yeah.
And in and around that time, I was like finally getting to the grade point average I needed as a sophomore in college to transfer as a junior out to UC, University of California in Davis, Northern California, right outside Sacramento. So
yeah, wow, that's quite a journey. And I mean, just but it sounds like that owner of that store, he definitely like opened your eyes and like kind of ushered you into, you know, that path that you're on now.
Yeah, we're friends to this day, and in fact, I hooked him up with an NSW rep in the Pennsylvania area so that he could bring the product into his store. He's still doing his thing, and so yeah, it's a cool journey.
That's great. So, in terms of the technical aspect of things, because you having that, you know, you say you were dropping like mad illustrations, and you had that like kind of creative illustrator side. Do you feel like you initially had that technical ability, or was it something that you fostered and over time?
I think the thing that I'll chalk up to those technical skills was when I got the gig with Hilfiger, they brought me in as an outerwear designer, and I'm one of the folks that always says that outerwear is the footwear of apparel, if you will. And so at that time, you know, that mad pace of like a 10-month calendar in 7th Avenue apparel coincided with a ton of travel to Asia and to work with our Hong Kong offices and our factory partners and our material vendors over there. And so, I mean, 6 to 8 times a year, I was going to Asia and really being immersed in that process as a young designer. And I kind of had a right-left sensibility to me, and I had a really strong connection with the production people. And our little crew on outerwear would basically, we were really tight knit. I would sit in on all the costing. So it was, even though it was like Tommy Hilfiger and it was a 7th Avenue brand, I mean, we were working like we were a small startup, you know, launching a product line.
Yeah.
So, you know, when it came to costing, so I was learning a ton in the costing meetings of like, you know, through the lens of outerwear that like, okay, a visor costs this much, you know, double flapped Velcro placket costs this much, you know, cuff adjusters, cord locks, all these types of things, right?
Yeah.
And then being on site with so many of the factories that were in Hong Kong, and working with their, you know, merchandising teams and whatnot, you know, you just really got exposed to the sewing floor. And then the same thing went for the material side. We were constantly in the showrooms with the vendors, looking at new hangers. And I kind of have like a somewhat photographic memory and could absorb a ton of information.
Yeah.
And I think my passion for materials always was driven by the fact that there were so many moving parts when it came to outerwear, 7 to 10 different fabrics in one garment, the lining fabric, the shell fabric, all these different elements. So I think the complexity of working and cutting my teeth as a designer, like on outerwear, was what really kind of honed the craft, if you will.
Yeah. I like how you said, outerwear is like the footwear of apparel. Cause it like for me, I've recently gotten into, I've done about 2 seasons now of outerwear for global football. And it really is tough work. And it's like, every little thing matters and you need it all and you want it all. And so it's like, to send out a bare jacket into the world with not the details that you need is like a downfall. Like it feels worse than a pair of shorts.
Self-deprecating. If you don't put the detail in up front, then you're dealing with it throughout the whole process.
Yeah, and it's like I think outerwear is like one of the fields or areas of fashion that you can't skimp on. Like, when you're outdoors and you need those pockets or you need those snaps or you need those clothing, like you can't skimp on it. You can't skimp on the material, so it's, I think, So in terms of innovation though, like in your career and how you were working with all those different jobs, like what was your favorite part in terms of innovation, like the process? Like,
when you're in the trenches and you're getting a seasonal brief, and I'm not going to say that design doesn't do well when we're confined and given a real clear brief. I think that's when we have to get most creative at times. But for me, I think the thing that really ignited the passion for innovation was the exploration aspect of it, right? And so when you're told that, like, focus on solving a problem for an athlete, or a consumer, or a void in the marketplace, and do that first, and then we'll figure out the right place for something in an assortment. That's really freeing from my perspective. From the contrast of like a seasonal brief where you're tied, directly to a price point and a margin. I think had I not been through that discipline process of designing inline, I couldn't have brought that to the innovation space to recognize that, okay, at some point this has to be commercially viable and come to market at a price point that's, way off the charts, or made of unattainium, if you will. And so that's where I think I really saw the passion for it, because it was always the exploration and the finding a new way of creating product, if you will.
Yeah. While you're creating new projects or product, are you like, what kind of designer are you in that process? Are you someone who kind of like is just exploring and creating a million drawings, or do you kind of go into it with something in mind?
I think there's a core problem, to solve. So it starts to, create a playing field for your exploration, if you will. But then I definitely believe in an iterative process, different ways to solve the same problem, if you will. And then, I love relying on an athlete engagement aspect, where you've surfaced an initial problem or need, and then after taking those insights in and then doing some ideation, coming back to that athlete engagement piece again to say, okay, you told me this, what if we tried it like this, or this, And so I always like that 3-step phase of like insight, exploration, refinement, concepting, ideating, and then prototyping.
Yeah. So,
and then obviously wear test and validate, but
yeah, totally. So to shift gears a little bit, what time periods and fashion and design do you, I mean, it could be by mistake or it could be on purpose, because sometimes you just gravitate towards certain time periods, but what time period do you most like about in design?
Well, I mean, there's two that kind of stand out. When I was coming into the industry in the mid 90s, early 90s, and being in Manhattan when all that was going off, I mean, there was nothing really like it. And if you put it in the context of the brand that I was with for the most part during that time, which was Hilfiger, it was the heyday of Hilfiger. It was when it was blowing up.
Yeah.
And I had the luxury of kind of working on some special projects with Tommy's brother, Andy. And Andy was connected at that point. Special projects were more about like entertainers or music, you know. And so, man, like the acts that I got to see and kind of be immersed in the culture of that time and its influence on fashion, you know, that was a hard one to beat for me, you know. Which is so wild right now because, like, you know, and then the last couple of years in basketball, when like so much of our you know, kind of inspiration and on the branded side and watching the stuff that like Jess and Megan were doing and everything, and bringing and you know, shout out to Mr. Sam, bringing that 90s vibe back into it, and then how much culturally it was happening in basketball too and stuff like that. So that was pretty dope. And then I gotta say, like, this kind of like, you know, so many different terms to coin it, but this athleisure piece, or this, you know, I've always been a real believer of fashion and function, you know, or fashion and flavor. And, you know, this collision, like seeing kind of the performance build, but with a lifestyle or streetwear edge come to life, I think was really, really killer to watch, you know, and whether that's from veterans like Stone Island, you know, or, you know, even proteges of that, like, you know, Errolson and Shadow Project or whatnot, or Acronym. And then, you know, the Arc'teryxes and the Valence lines or the Issei Auras. I mean, that kind of, for me, was a place that I always knew that this type of product could go. But yet it took a while for that collision to really happen, and the people to realize that, like, man, this, you know, I mean, it got to that place where, like, how much black overlays can you put on your technical gear, North Face, right? Primaries, so that there was going to be some kind of evolution, and to see it get to that place now where you got like really fly, you know, silhouettes and streetwear silhouettes built in performance materials. I mean, that for me is kind of like a piece of the fashion puzzle that I was really glad to see get unlocked.
I had the chance to work at Bodega in Boston, a streetwear shop, and started in 2008. And I remember just getting like Acronym in the store, and, you know, like getting these, you know, I think they were probably like $1,400 jackets when they were doing, like, you know, a lot of the magnetic features and the internal like all that stuff. And like you said, you know, we were waiting for it to get to that point, because I think, you know, other brands were doing it, but no one was really like taking it to that kind of stealth, like Ninja Warrior type like space where it was like you had everything you need, like it
leveraging the shoulder, and the Gore-Tex, and the, you know,
it felt like you could like bury somebody in that jacket, and they'll just like have what they need to kind of like dig themselves out of the earth.
Totally.
Type of, so in terms of, on that note, like, are there things that you're currently picturing, you know, for the future? Because now we're getting into, you know, the science and apparel has really amalgamated like together. It's just like everything's one now. You know, are you already starting to see where the future is going, or?
Well, I mean, I think for me, um, you know, I love hearing from like Sally Lowen and some of the macro trends, and this whole idea of wellness. And I think what we've just come through as a global society, um, it's going to be interesting to see how we emerge from it, right? And what are those macro trends that are going to be at the forefront, creating opportunities for a brand like ours, if you will. I think I'm still assessing kind of, where it can go. I think the sustainability piece is going to be one of the big things that really is just at the forefront and intertwined. Wellness through so many different lenses of like decompression or stress management or, just preventative living will also be a big component of it. But I think that sustainability piece and getting a supply chain to be fully closed loop, and get to that minimalist wardrobe. I don't know if you saw that movie where it's like 33 pieces in your wardrobe, and like anytime you put one in, you take one out. I mean, you see some of these closets are like, show me you're a millionaire without telling me you're a millionaire on TikTok or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you go into these closets and it's just like, bro, like how much do you need, right? And so I think that is going to start to kind of permeate just how people approach, and then as brands really get in front of like taking back apparel to create new apparel. I think hopefully we get to that place before we have to get to that place.
Yeah, that's a good point of just like being at the point where you're forced to only have so many outfits or so much of your wardrobe. How do you see like consumption? I mean, because like in apparel, like for me, it's almost like we're the good guys and the bad guys, because we're like
consumerism.
We're feeding it, so now we're like, okay, we have to control what we're feeding it, and we have to make sure that, like you said, the closed loophole. Like, are there times where you feel like personally you're like, I'm feeding this thing, so I gotta like change how I'm thinking about it, or I need to like push harder to really like make sure that these things are efficient and good for the planet? Like,
yeah, I think as brands, we need to stay in front of that first and foremost, and really, track against these goals, audacious goals, if you will, because if we're not thinking this way, then we're not going to get there. And then, so I think, to keep a positive outlook in the consumer's eyes, it's beholden upon us as Nike and as other brands to really be proactive, and to imagine that future before we're told, hey, you just keep telling us to buy more and more of this, and I think there'll be this kind of balancing act between and we're just trying to do this now as far as assortments go. How many products do you need to build the revenue and for your company, right? Do you do it really, really deep volume with a limited amount of styles, or you do a lot of shallow volume in a ton of styles, right? And somewhere in that equation is a balancing act. But I think if we're able to get to a place through a simplification process like we're going through now, and start to curate the customer choices in a way that aligns with a sustainable and closed loop supply chain, we'll ultimately be positioned to then, when we do small runs of really cool and unique stuff, we won't be as targeted, if you will. And no, I mean, I wish I had the crystal ball, because I probably pointed towards Wall Street, but I don't. So, I mean, that's my best guess at it right now, that like, hey, if we stay the course and really start to lead the industry, then it's going to be really hard for people to, point the finger at us when there's a groundswell or a culture of canceling brands that don't,
Yeah.
Contribute positively to, global health.
Yeah, totally. So to shift gears again, what would you say was like, because you've been in this industry for a while, so what would you say was the best piece of advice? And it could be a few things, but maybe at the beginning of your career to up till now, like what do you think was the best advice someone had ever given you?
It's a funny one because I go back to it, so it must have hit me square. So when I finished FIT, and I had done some work between my first first year of FIT and with Patagonia out in California. So I was designing for Patagonia, and so when I finished the menswear program at FIT, I did this 10,000 mile 6-week cross country trip, and it included like dropping down to Florida, all the way over to Cali, all the way up to Seattle, and back to Manhattan. And on the West Coast, I basically had 3 interviews lined up: Patagonia, North Face, and Nike. And it was an interview with Nike before I actually joined the company. And so did that swing, checked back in with the Patagonia folks. The North Face gig was a head designer for their Rage line, which was the snowboard line that they were going to drop.
Yes.
And then I was having so much fun on that cross country trip with my traveling companion, my girlfriend at the time, that we got a little sidetracked, and I never actually made it to the Nike interview.
Oh man!
Wow. It was more about my contact being on vacation the week that I asked to push it back to, and it wasn't able to happen. But needless to say, by the time I got to, I think, Madison, Wisconsin, I got a call from North Face offering me the position. So as I came back to Manhattan and started to do kind of more of the fashion brand interview circuit, right? Polo, J. Crew, Tommy was on the list. There was also a guy named Robert Comstock. Now, somewhere along the line, this guy was connected to somebody I went to FIT with. But he did this really kind of extravagant outerwear, probably more leather oriented. And he would sell it at those like shishi shops at like ski resorts, right? And so I had this interview with him, and this is the thing that he said to me that stuck out. He goes, look, you're an outdoorsman. you know outerwear, you know what you want, how it has to work, all these different things, right? And I think at that time I might have had an offer from Tommy on the table, but I was still interviewing, right?
Yeah.
And so what he basically said to me, he goes, look, it'd be really fun and really chill for you to like go back to California, work for North Face, work in a brand you're really comfortable around the product and everything, but you don't know fashion. You don't know the fashion industry. And so his biggest, recommendation was like, immerse yourself in this industry so that you know what it's all about. You know where your passions are about, outdoor recreation and everything. You can always do that.
Yeah.
But you don't know right now if you can do the fashion industry. And that was the thing that like ultimately made me go with the Hilfiger offer versus the North Face offer.
Yeah. You went against the grain. You were like, let me try what I don't know. I can always go back to what I know.
And what was great, like I said earlier, was, the opportunity that I got to be in Asia, in factories with vendors, in mills. That's what really, gave me the experience. I mean, I was there for about 3 years doing that 6 to 8 trips a year.
Wow.
We'd go over, we'd drop tech packs, look at first protos, and then approve salesman samples all on that same trip. So almost like 2 or 3 seasons at a time,
Were these like 2-week trips or? Like
I mean, sometimes 3, depending on how many countries we were going to and whatnot. We did a ton of it out of the Hong Kong offices for Hilfiger, but yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. And it's always nice when someone like sees what you do and they're just like, this is what you do, this is who you are. But but then there's that cherry on top of like, but you can do something different, you can explore something different.
Yeah. No, it was really good insight and really good feedback.
Yeah. I read that you have a family, you got kids, you got a wife. You like to just do outdoor stuff and like hang out, right? Like,
yeah,
during this whole time, because we've all been at home in quarantine a lot. What are you doing with the family to like stay busy?
Well, so one of the interesting things, a year ago, like almost to the week, we threw caution to the wind early on. So 6 years ago, we just for context, we jumped into an Airstream travel trailer, and so we've always been big outdoors people. We climb, mountain bike, ski, snowboard, camp, hike, and we've been doing that since our girls were little, right? So we just, and it helped. We grew that we had our girls back in New Hampshire, and when 5 months out of the year are probably close to 30 degrees, they were used to bundling them up and putting them in gear, right?
Yeah.
Then we move them to the Northwest where like it rains all the time, so they're kind of accustomed to it. So last year this time, we saw some of the headwinds coming. Hey, this might get gnarly. What's happening in China? But we said, forget it. Let's go. Let's just get outside. We'll be outside. So we left. We get halfway down. We were headed to Joshua Tree.
Mm-hmm.
We get halfway down. California shuts down. Wow. So our very first night, we pull in and we get the report that California's shutting down. So that was unfortunate. But ultimately, we turned back around, got back across the Oregon border, and then basically camped out for 6 or 7 days before the state park shut down in Oregon, and we found our way back to Portland. That hasn't changed. I mean, our summers are just stacked. For spring break coming up next week, we leave for Moab for 10 days. So we're taking the Airstream, driving out to Moab. We'll be doing some Jeep four-wheeling tours. We're staying at a spot called Dead Horse Point State Park, which is this amazing canyon. But yeah, we'll be 10 days there. And then, the rest of the summer is like our anecdote for this whole thing has been outside.
Yeah.
Get outside, get your mask off, be out in nature, get fresh air. And that's been our anecdote. And we stick to it because it's amazing. It's wonderful time with the family, and we do a ton of paddle boarding as well. And lake, get the fly rod out, the paddle board out, cook good food. It's our shtick, if you will.
Yeah.
As a family,
you have to have that. I think this time period, at least for me, has been recalibrating, just recalibrating everything that's either whether it's personal goals, family, FaceTime with the family, just like anything that kind of is like recalibrating, centering you, and letting you or being more aware of time, right? Like time is someone said earlier today, actually on a podcast, or they said the audacity, or like it was something about the audacity of like believing that tomorrow is coming. There's a lot of tomorrow may not be coming, so it's like being in the now and appreciating and looking
Optimism.
Around. And just grabbing hold of what's happening. There's a lot of beautiful things happening today and now. So are your daughters creative? Is your wife creative?
Yeah, my wife by trade is also a fashion designer. She went to Parsons.
Mm-hmm.
My girls are very, very artistic. So a couple different outlets for that. Ruby, my oldest, is a really good illustrator. Her portrait skills are like pretty rad.
Nice.
She also is a vocalist, so she sings, and she's dabbled in dance, but not as much as her sister. And so then
Yeah.
her sister's very, very creative. She's kind of a tinkerer. She's kind of picking up the craft a little bit. So she's been
Yeah.
sewing her butt off lately.
Nice.
Just pulling a lot of YouTube DIYs and just sewing up a bunch of uniform or sewing up. I'll segue to that. Sewing up a bunch of clothes, kind of like recycling her clothes and like
Yeah.
making new clothes out of them and things like that. There was a point last year, I think it was, and the kind of coincided with the WNBA reset. Well, she just on her own just comes to me one day with mom's iPad and is like, "Dad, check out some of these WNBA designs I did," and it was hilarious. We actually set up a time where she presented to Stu and Will.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it was awesome. But yeah, she's and then she does a lot of hip hop dance too. So,
Nice.
yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, man. I don't no kids yet, but that sounds amazing. They keep you young, they keep you like inspired, I'm sure.
Oh man, no doubt.
Yeah. So in terms of like how you see the future of your future, and this can be at Nike or outside of Nike, like what kind of aspirations and dreams do you have about like where you want to take design?
Yeah, I think it's as a designer, I think there's always this innate desire to do something for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so trying to manage a family dynamic and a corporate dynamic inside Nike Design, that balancing act. But it's something that like as a family, we did a visioning exercise for 21, and we kind of all highlighted things that like are on our bucket list or like a goal setting, if you will. And it was light and fun and good and awesome with the girls to kind of instill that type of stuff. And so, I think for me, I think there is, some ideas that are percolating. My lady's on that same tip right now. She's got a venture that she's wanting to get after. So whether it's, helping her with that or kind of pursuing some of the ideas that I've always kind of kept in the back of the mind a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about where Nike's going. I'm really excited about the formal process of innovation and the creative process of innovation for Nike Apparel. I definitely feel like there's room for growth and formalization for that and an unlock to be had there. And I feel like PTL is going to be a good place for us to continue to show best practices, to really, showcase what Nike apparel innovation could be. So that's something I'm really fired up about. And I think, it's interesting because like, a little bit of a journey there, spent time with a number of different brands and a number of different sectors in both wholesale and vertical retail apparel organizations.
Yeah.
So, I think at some point in my career, I had the opportunity between my time at Eddie Bauer and when I came back to Nike, trying to rebalance the work and family, to consult. And it was a really amazing experience. And so at the right point in my career, I feel like there's an opportunity there to, I don't know if I call it riding off in the sunset, but, being able to kind of still keep a creative mind engaged, and still, have some beer money,
Yep. Yeah. We all need that.
Or some man toy money, or I didn't mention my 12-inch action figure collection.
Yes, I know we haven't. I saw the images though.
And so those aren't cheap sometimes, especially when you find the ones on eBay. So I got to have some money that's not going to my lady and the girls, you know, for myself. So
Yep.
maybe that consulting path is something that could support me in my man cave endeavors.
Totally. Yes. We all need that. I'm looking forward to getting to that point. You know, I do music on the side,
That's
and
awesome,
make beats and stuff. And
dude. I gotta hook you up with Tessa, man. She's like mastering Soundtrap, dude.
oh yeah,
Yeah, I'll send you some of her tracks. She's just dropping them, bro.
is she on like SoundCloud and all that stuff? Like,
She hasn't put anything out. She's been thinking about putting some on the web. And I was
yeah,
like,
go
do it,
for it.
man. You know. But
Yeah,
yeah,
like,
she's been playing a little bit in the electronic genre, a little bit, but
okay.
it's pretty cool, man. It's like really cool to see that.
Yeah, I'm hoping one day to like have like a little in-home studio type, like an official, like a
Yeah,
real,
man.
you know, build
Heck
out a
yeah.
real studio. But one of the points you made about PTO was interesting, of like, you know, letting PTO or making it so that PTO can kind of showcase the best practices at Nike and show, you know, what they envision for apparel
Yes, sir.
design. How do you, I mean, I guess because we're getting into like 3D and Clo and a lot of
Yeah.
that kind of futuristic, which enables you to showcase your skills without actually creating, you know,
Yeah.
that bulk that we were talking about earlier, you know, that waste. That's like,
Yeah.
now we're with the digital space, we're able to visualize, like, is that a space that you, so I had a conversation with Elizabeth Geis, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
she kind of was, you know, she was kind of on both sides of it, of like, that's, you know, that's the future, but sometimes you got to realize that, you know, your time is coming. Do you feel like, because I feel the same, I'm like, I know it's going to go to a place where I'm just going to have to tap out. Where do you think you fall in that space of like the future of 3D design?
Well, you know, I 100% love the tools, right? I think there's current state, there's limitations, right?
Yeah.
When you think about new silhouette design, you know, the different facets, right? When you're talking about a chassis or franchise silhouette, that's really getting veneering, and your ability to just grab that already existing digital asset and design around it, right? Like team sports, you know, things like that. Like those are really awesome tools to streamline that entire process, right? And so I think one of the unlocks, when you start to pivot to men's, women's, and kids, and you start to look at the bulk of seasonal creation that's new silhouettes, new style lines, new blocks, these types of things. This is what's going to be interesting to see, the process map that we create to garner those same streamline points within the process, right?
Yeah.
For me, until that complete unlock is there, I think all of us have to really grab onto the part of it that fits most well into the work that we're doing, right?
Yeah, the current state. Yeah.
You know, like the visualization of textile designs, or the material artwork, being able to place that onto a garment, scale it onto the chassis that it's intended for, see how it best, you know, matches against the data that we've already gathered from motion capture, or from heat maps, or from sweat maps and whatnot. So
Yeah.
so I think, you know, there's so many different facets of how the digital tools can be leveraged. That's really, for me, where you know, within the organization and the different roles, how are you leveraging it to create a holistic digital creation process, right? Directors and above might really just grab those digital assets, but earlier in the process, to really ignite the business partners, to let them see and feel the vision of what we're going to make, right?
Yeah.
So much sooner in the process than we have. I mean, I look at some of the dry fit ADV work that we did, and how fast it was to get everybody on board with an aesthetic and where we want to go and how we want to unite a visual across team sport, right? And it's because of those tools that we had early in the process that visualized the intent, right?
Mhm.
And then when you get down in the trenches, if it's a TD person, they could be working upstream with their partners, just like we used to send a store-bought sample that a designer would bring to them and say, hey, get this off to the factory so that they can start that block work.
Yeah,
So I
they
think
can.
the same thing, like the TD can work with their partner at the factory level now in that same format. So I think there's a lot of unlocks at the different roles within the organization that I think will ultimately create the total sum of like
Yeah.
a streamlining of our creative process. So
Yeah, I think your comment earlier about how we need to kind of I think it was like 30 outfits or 33 outfits. You don't
yeah,
do you really need any more? I think that's going to also that unlock those unlocks are going to free us up, because
yeah,
currently I feel like there's an oversaturation. A short is a short is a short, a hoodie is a hoodie is a hoodie.
yeah,
But if we can, with these unlocks, we can kind of like stop and say like, what is a hoodie? And then we can start to
yes,
say, what is the future hoodie?
yes,
Versus, and it's like we understand the hoodie, but like this is hoodie 2.0 and how we got here, and we're innovating at the highest level. So yeah,
totally.
I think there's some processes that could be automated here. Like, do we need to be designing t-shirts anymore? Have we made enough t-shirts that we can just make t-shirts?
Yeah, what's the best
You
10
know?
t-shirts that we always use, right?
Yeah,
And then we
exactly.
stay on top of trends and everything that start to dictate how those might waver or
Mhm.
vary, right? A waning style that was number one goes down to 7. Well, then what's
Yep.
going to be, how do we replace that?
Yeah.
When we think about cross sport assortment strategies, from the business side, hey, give us those spaces, right? And give us the architecture. If a pyramid of good, better, best, where most of the overlap or having a silhouette service multiple sports can live in like the good and better space.
Yeah.
If we lock it down on that, and like whether it's a fan wear chassis for men's or women's, or a hoodie or a crew or whatever it might be, and it's relevant, maybe with subtle fabrication variances between sport, but the
Yeah.
silhouette's locked in, that's work that doesn't get touched. And what it does is, in that best part of the pyramid, it
Exactly.
allows teams to focus there with an advanced understanding of when it's needed, to be able to ideate, innovate, validate, and really
Yeah.
create things by the time it's expected to hit the marketplace. And that will allow us to do that special thing that's really needed for global football, or really needed for an NFL player or for an NBA player. And so I think
Yeah.
we are going to get to that place where the comfort of what we experience at a category level was ingrained in our workflow. We're going to get that way with PTL. We're going to know that those are the given spaces. They're going to have certain life cycles, and we're going to be able to like know when those come and plan for it and have a roadmap against projects and work streams to be in front of the whole thing. So I'm
Yeah.
very confident that we'll get it there.
Totally. Yeah. We'll definitely get there. It's gonna be like an Apple situation, because like it's gonna be when they updated. Everyone remembers like when they updated that operating system to kind of like the one we know now, and how that kind of like changed mobile devices, changed
Oh, the
computers,
iOS,
changed
yeah,
the
yeah,
iOS. Exactly.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
it's Nike kind of moving in. There's gonna I don't know if we don't have our iOS yet, but
Yeah,
I think these unlocks that you're talking about are gonna get us to point 1.0, or and then I think once we teach our consumers, and we let them know, like, you're not gonna get a different hoodie. You're gonna get a better hoodie. You're
yeah,
gonna get the best hoodie. And we're gonna keep giving you that, versus making you buy new hoodies every see like
yeah.
that's not what we're trying to
Well,
do.
I think it's a curation at the end of
Yeah.
the day, right? And so I think as we get to a place of like maximizing the resources that we have, we'll get into a cadence. And I think this is where the PTL leading this charge and unlocking this around chassis, call it chassis, call it franchise style, whether you're talking about it through men's, women's, kids, or through a team sport lens,
Yeah.
and materials, right? And so if we create a pace of innovation that allows ourselves to pulse those chassis updates or material platform updates, that's a really consistent way for us to introduce products at the consumer level and to really plan. I think if you look historically at Nike, both in footwear and in apparel, the pace of innovation has probably been a little fast. By the time we're able to actually get the amount of product and new technology and new product platform, whether it's an outsole, whether it's a fit technology, into the hands of the consumer where they start to really experience it, have it resonate within them, and then start to look for it again, we're telling them they need something new.
Something new. Exactly.
You know? And so like, how much have we left on the table as like, you know, whereas like another season or two with some of these things. Now there's some things that we've done really well doing that. You know, you can look at things like Techpack or Aeroloft or other things. But in the end, that pace of innovation and how we do it and curate it is going to be really critical to how fast we can, you know, move the consumer. Yeah.
And we don't want to burn out either. You know, there's a lot of good energy.
Constraints are real, man, you know?
Yeah, totally. This has been amazing. I don't want to hold you too long. I feel like
super fun, man. It's been so enjoyable to hear, you know, the other ones that you've done with everyone. So
this is amazing. You put a lot of stuff to think. Like I'm gonna listen back and and like there's a lot of ideas here. And I think your experience definitely is obvious, you know, in the things that you've brought in this conversation. So I appreciate your time.
This was awesome. So thank you very much.
Anytime.
All right. Thanks, James. Good to see you, dog.
See ya. This concludes episode 7. Thank you for listening.